8 Days is a brand new action-packed, sprite-based bloodbath now out on the PlayStation 4. But does this game end up assassinating the competition, or does it just make you feel like a mediocre mercenary? In 8 Days, you get to select from 1 or 2 playable characters at the start, and the game can be played co-op at any point, though unfortunately it's only local co-op. You control either Lola or Joe, and you're going to be blasting your way from level to level, trying to survive, and of course taking out tons of enemies. You use the left stick or D-pad to move around, while you're using the right one in order to aim. You'll then use the R2 button in order to fire, which takes a bit getting used to. Even when I reached the end of the game, I was still having trouble getting the aiming quite down the way I would have liked it. 8 Days is broken up into 5 different chapters with multiple areas each, mini-bosses, and then of course a boss at the end. You're basically tasked with going into areas and taking out different terrorists and other enemies of an organization that you're working for, but of course the plot starts to unravel and you find out that the organization isn't quite what you thought they were. You have a limited amount of health at your disposal, and once it's taken out, it's game over and you'll have to start back from the previous checkpoint, which usually is every screen transition, though there are a few times where you'll go between screens and areas that don't end up checkpointing you. There is a point later on in the game where you get an ability to basically get 1 extra health back once you end up dying, after kind of changing forms and taking out some enemies as a powerful other being. I don't want to, of course, spoil too much because that's one of the main plot points, but this aspect ends up making the game a bit easier since you do have a little bit of extra health, plus the more powerful form to use. This game is not easy for a few reasons. You have that limited amount of health, but also when you make it to another checkpoint, the health, whatever you had at that time when the checkpoint saved, is what you're going to start off with. So there's plenty of times where I made the areas and I started off with no health and I had to kind of really scavenge the area and try to sneak my way around. A lot of times later in the game it was much more about trying to get around the enemies and just running past them than actually trying to fight them. You also have a very limited amount of ammo from time to time. In fact, some areas you start off with no ammo. You'll have to either use your fist or rocks that are nearby and pick them up to take out enemies. Enemies, of course, will drop whatever weapon they're currently carrying once you do take them out or knock them out. And of course, you'll be able then to get plenty of it as you're taking out lots of enemies. The more enemies you take out, of course, the more ammo that you're possibly going to get, but trying to stay alive in order to get a big surplus of ammo usually isn't going to end up being worth it. Thankfully, the game always gives you enough ammo for whatever boss encounters you do end up coming up to. So when you get ready to go to a new area and you see a lot of ammo lying around, good chance that there's a boss in the next room. By far the most enjoyable aspect of 8 Days for me was the boss encounters, the mini-bosses and the main bosses for each stage, and these got pretty tough, especially the last few in the game, taking me many retries in order for me to kind of get the hang of the patterns and be able to finally take down each of them. A lot of these are pretty much just a barrage of bullets and weaponry going everywhere, and you really have to kind of pay attention, just like you would in a shoot-'em-up style game, being able to dodge and weave in and out of the bullets and try to pick the opportunities in order to deliver your gunfire. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some issues when it comes to the aiming, but I also felt that the controls were a bit floaty. Your character doesn't have a whole lot of weight to them, so when it came to like dodging in and out of the bullets, especially during harder boss encounters, I wish that the character had a little bit more precision with the movement. With a little bit of practice and all, I was still able to get by okay, but it's just a minor gripe I ended up having. Also, the hub that's on screen to show your health and what ammo you have is in the lower left corner of the screen, and there was 1 or 2 boss encounters where I kind of needed to see in that corner, making it a little bit tougher to see where my character was in order to dodge in and out of the bullets. From the technical side of things, while the game ran pretty smoothly, it did crash on me on 2 different occasions going between areas. Thankfully, the checkpoints does save your game every time, so once I was able to load the game back up, I was able to start pretty much right where I ended up having the game crash on me, but it was just a minor annoyance. I also have to say that I really enjoyed the soundtrack. The ending song in particular, and some of the songs throughout the course of the levels, was really enjoyable. 8 Days is available on the PlayStation 4 for $7.99. It features a full trophy list and a platinum trophy, which will have you doing a few side objectives as well as completing the game with both of the main characters. Overall, 8 Days is a pretty fun but relatively short experience. The 5 chapters only honestly took me about 2.5 hours in order to get through, and now of course that had me dying quite a few times against the later bosses in the game, so that definitely added some extra time to my playthrough, so you may end up taking a little bit longer or a little bit shorter in order to complete the game the first time around. If you're someone who enjoys a pretty decent challenge as well as sprite-based action games, 8 Days will probably be worth checking out for you. In the end, I'm going to be giving the game a 7 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.